네, 좋습니다, 여러분. 저희 이제 세션 시작할 예정이거든요. 지금 아직 서 계신 분들이 계셔서요. 착석 부탁드리겠습니다. 저희 마지막 세션입니다, 여러분. 착석 부탁드리겠습니다. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let us get started. So, since we have all the panelists, speaker, as well as moderator, and I realized that I shouldn't speak too much, because we are always running out of time, right? So I will turn the microphone to our moderator right away. So please welcome them with a big round of applause, everyone.
Our distinguished guests, esteemed speakers and participants, a very good morning to everyone. Welcome to the closing session of the Busan International Port Conference. We're delighted to have this discussion with you this morning. As we've heard throughout the conference, maritime industry has a pivotal role in global trade and also a significant impact on the environment. The maritime industry accounts for about 3% of global GHG emissions. If taken only as part of transport sector, it's about 11% of all transport-related emissions globally. It's about third ranked when you look at it. And if it were a country, maritime industry, if it were a country, it would be ranked in terms of its emissions for the last 50 years as number 6 in the world between Germany and Japan. Now, these are the emission discussions, but also Asia-Pacific, when we look at particularly the Asia-Pacific region, we see that it has a significant role in the industry itself. It's estimated that over 64% of all goods that are transported by maritime in the world either go through Asia or originate in Asia. So we will be hearing a lot from different ports, from different backgrounds and technological uptake levels and geographies today, and looking at the issues from a global perspective together. Developing and emerging market ports are at the nexus of global supply chains, serving as vital arteries for trade and commerce. They face similar challenges in the transition towards a low-carbon future, which call for new ways of doing business. And as we've heard over the last day and a half, innovative technologies, policy frameworks, and intra-regional collaboration will be important in balancing commercial drivers and sustainability ambitions while navigating this complex landscape. We will hear, as I mentioned, from a diverse group of ports, from Seattle and Long Beach to Samoa and Fiji in the Pacific. We have a lot of ground to cover and an excellent group of domain experts who will share their experiences and insights for the way forward. To accommodate all, we'll have a somewhat novel approach today, worthy of the closing session of this excellent BIPC. We will start with the decarbonization initiatives that have been helping establish industry benchmarks with presentations from the ports of Long Beach, Seattle, and Busan, along with an introductory presentation highlighting areas for attention and the role of development partners in the Asia-Pacific region. Next, we will have a panel discussion with insights from India, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka, followed by reflections on the opportunities and challenges in the sector from Fiji, Samoa, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our first speaker, Roger Wu. Roger is the Director of Business Development at the Port of Long Beach, California, responsible for revenue maximization and business attraction strategies. And Roger, Long Beach is one of the busiest container ports in the US and has had a robust history of sustainability initiatives. It has been one of the early adopters of digitalization for decarbonization initiatives as well. Floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Please.
Could we have the presentation for Roger?
Well, we switched over to the correct presentation. I just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Roger Wu. There you go. My name is Roger Wu, Director of Business Development from the Port of Long Beach. I'm very honored to be invited by BPA to be here to give you a very quick presentation. And I think this is a very interesting topic, and I'll share some information on how do we work on these two very important subjects, namely digitalization and decarbonization. Here's a quick outline of my presentation. I'm going to give you a very short introduction of the Port of Long Beach for those who are not familiar with our port. And then I'm going to describe the environmental programs that we have worked on over the years. Then I'll talk about our major digitalization project, which is the Supply Chain Information Highway. And then I'm going to talk about the environmental benefit that could be derived from digitalization. And lastly, I'm going to give you two examples of these projects. For those who are not familiar with us, we are located in Southern California on the west coast of the United States. We are the number two busiest port in the US behind the Port of Los Angeles. Together with Los Angeles, we're a major gateway to the Trans-Pacific trade. We're not the biggest port, but we did move 8 million TEUs and 175 million tons of cargo in 2023. And this year, because of various geopolitical reasons, we are going to move just about 9.2 million TEUs, or even more, which is going to be similar to the pandemic cargo surge volume. One thing I do want to point out, this is a little unique. In Long Beach, we don't have a lot of transshipment cargo. In fact, we have 0 transshipment cargo. So every piece of cargo, every ship that comes to Long Beach, we handle full load and discharge. So for a typical exchange, we handle about 12,000 container moves, which is equivalent to 22,000 TEUs per ship. And here are some of the environmental programs that we have worked on. And we do believe that we can, as my boss, Dr. Noel Hascaba, said yesterday, we truly believe in growing cargo and growing cargo greenly and sustainably. The most important environmental commitment that we had was the historic Clean Air Action Plan, which was approved by the Board of Harbor Commissioners in 2006. And in 2008, together with the neighboring port of Los Angeles, we started the Clean Trucks program, which we eliminated old trucks and promoted the use of trucks with better engine standards. We also created a number of incentive programs, and we believe that incentive program can help promote good behaviors and further contribute in decarbonization. Just some of the examples, we gave incentive for ships that switch over to the low sulfur fuel. We gave incentive to vessels that slow down to 12 knots within 40 nautical miles. And we also use ESI index and give upward to $9,000 for ships that are using Tier 3 engines. And we're always working on next generation of incentive programs so that we can contribute in decarbonization and encourage the usage of things such as alternative fuels for the ships. And regarding to digitalization, we believe it is very critical in many areas, including decarbonization. We first started the Supply Chain Information Highway, which I mentioned earlier, during pandemic, after we have I'm sure every port experienced the congestion, and this is born out of the lessons learned from that period. The main goal is to provide cargo visibility to our stakeholders, and we believe that we should offer the solution free of charge for everyone. And we believe that if everyone knows where their containers are, they can make better operational choices. And by making more efficient operational choices, we can reduce environmental impacts. And we're also expanding the capability of the Supply Chain Information Highway. And because of that, we have won the approval from the California State Government's office, and we were awarded $7.8 million. And we're going to use the money to develop some of the project that's listed on the screen. We're going to use the fund to develop a universal truck appointment system, and we're going to use the money to keep the program running and upkeeping. And we're going to use the project to find a way to track environmental practices throughout the supply chain. And we're going to collaborate with international ports, including the Port of Busan. We're already working with Shanghai and Singapore, as my boss have mentioned before. We're going to work with Busan, and we're going to improve the reporting capability of the data we're collecting. Agencies such as USDOT, it does rely on our reports to give them so that they understand the status of the supply chain. And further, we're going to explore the usage of AI based on the data we collect to improve our operational decisions. And we also believed greatly that the decarbonization can greatly enhance by the digitalization efforts. And we believe that better decision born out of data collection can really help us in making better, as I mentioned, better operational decisions. And through these, we can demonstrate how important it is for the work that we are working on the port's impact on reducing environmental impacts. And we also want to share and learn the experience that we have been working with international ports. That's why we've signed the Green Shipping Corridor agreements with Shanghai and Singapore. And we hope to work with these partners and more partners, including the Port of Busan and Kaohsiung. And lastly, we are laying the foundation so that we can build a port of the future. And I'm going to give you two quick examples of the works we're working on. First is the digitalization project that we're working within the shipping corridor effort with Singapore. We're working with Singapore and PA to create a singular platform to capture vessel departure and arrival data, as well as vessel movement data from vessel operators. The data in a number of operational conditions will be fed into the system for further analysis. And the parties will support further development of this platform to provide optimized vessel routing to achieve environmental benefits. We also want to utilize this platform to track usage of alternative fuels such as methanol. And this project, as Singapore MPA calls this, just-in-time project, will have significant benefit both in environmental protection and cost saving. And the next project is the universal truck appointment system that I mentioned before. Within the Southern California Port Complex, there are a total of 12 container terminals. And between the 12 container terminals, we have as many as 15 ocean carriers calling in the ports. So if you calculate it, there could be mathematically 180 combinations for importers to deploy their trucks. And this is highly inefficient. And that could also create the issues in local areas such as traffic and truck emissions. That's why we want to build the universal appointment system to provide better visibility and to help the importers to make better utilization of their assets, and therefore better operational decisions, again, lead to greater efficiency and therefore better environmental impacts. And we're in development of this system right now, and we hope to roll this out by the end of this year. And these are the two examples I have, and this is the end of my presentation. I'll be glad to answer your question later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger, for sharing the developments not only on the sustainability side, but also digitalization efforts, including the supply chain information highway and AI-supported decision-making. Thank you for highlighting the importance of data sharing as we continue our concerted efforts to improve decarbonization globally with our partner ports. Our second speaker is Stephen Mitrak. He is the Executive Director of the Port of Seattle, overseeing trade, travel, and logistics services. Steve, Roger mentioned green digital shipping corridors. Port of Seattle has had an innovative initiative, taking it further with the Cruise Green Corridor. Among other initiatives, of course, led by your team. Could you elaborate on these initiatives and perhaps share some of the challenges we should be prepared to address going forward?
Good morning, everyone. I want to say it's quite an honor to be here at this conference for the first time, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity. And I want to say thank you to the Port of Busan for putting on this valuable conference and the great information that's being passed and the lessons that are being learned here. And also for the opportunity to share with you some of the ways that Seattle is moving towards its maritime emission reduction goals and providing some ideas and thoughts for maritime decarbonization and based upon our experience and what we see on the horizon. First, I know you heard a little bit about the Port of Seattle from Commissioner Sam Cho yesterday, but I'll do my presentation, then you can see who did it better, okay? We'll do a thing on that. We are located in Puget Sound region of Washington State, which provides strategic access to both Alaska and Asia. And our port is unique, as you heard. The United States is that we're one of the few port authorities that has both an airport and a seaport. And for those that have flown into Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, we have the 11th busiest port in North America and close to 4 dozen direct international flights, including to Korea. On the seaport side, Seattle is the largest cruise home port in the West Coast of the United States and gateway to the Alaska cruise market. By the end of the 2024 season, we'll have 275 cruises and 1.7 million revenue passengers. We also operate a grain terminal, 5 marinas, and offer the commercial fishing and recreational boating moorage. And we are also home to the North Pacific Fishing Fleet, which fishes off the waters of Alaska. We're also part of the 7th largest cargo gateway in the United States, and through an innovative joint venture partnership with the Port of Tacoma called the Northwest Seaport Alliance. So I think it's worth taking a couple minutes to see how we're organized, because that matters for what we try to accomplish in our work. The Port of Seattle is a public port. We are a special purpose government, founded in 1911 by the vote of the people of the region. Overseeing the port is a commission of 5 publicly elected commissioners. And that is who I report to as the executive director. And it's interesting, these are at large, which means that they're elected by the entire electorate of the region. And so when decisions come to this also, and also in here you can see the, there we go, sorry about that. So you can see how it's set up here. We have the 5 commissioners, but also the port that we have the joint venture with, the Port of Tacoma, has 5 commissioners. Then together, the 10 of them create the board that oversees the Northwest Seaport Alliance. To do that, our publicly elected commissioners are charged with ensuring that the port's priorities and the work that we do in our programs reflect the community's values. And that has led for us to develop what we call a triple bottom line. You're familiar with the bottom line. We have developed a triple bottom line. Our priorities are centered around succeeding in business, creating an equitable economic opportunities, and doing this in a manner that in the most sustainable way possible. And we accomplish that to implement this triple bottom line approach and to achieve our environmental goals of the Port of Seattle. We have a somewhat limited set of tools. We do not have regulatory authority. We are a landlord port, so our best tools are working directly with our customers and tenants, utilizing long-term leases, agreements, and tariffs, convening industries and interested parties, and leading voluntary actions. This slide illustrates how we're going from the big picture strategic planning to more detailed implementation projects to achieve our goals. Almost 20 years ago, in 2005, air quality was a clear priority for the port's surrounding communities. We worked with our region's largest port competitors through a long process with public input and charted a voluntary pathway to reduce harmful air pollutants. To the planning efforts, we needed to address community values, partners and tenants, and solutions that meets the needs of all of them. Creating an implementation plan and timeline that might be considered slow for some of the public members, but also fast for some of our business partners. And we also committed to measuring and tracking emissions and sharing the results with the public, which was a fairly new thing for a port to do. I'd like to share with you now, and this shows one of our websites, and now we're updating our public monthly on our website with emissions on our new cruise activity and the performance dashboard, and that's what you see here on the right side. The dashboard is an example of another tool that we use for public accountability, and now pulling from our successful air quality playbook, we're moving to tackle the most pressing issue today, greenhouse gas emissions. The world is moving towards zero emissions by 2050. The International Maritime Organization has adopted goals for the shipping. Thus, ports need to determine how we will prepare to support zero-emission ships that are coming. Planning to reduce zero greenhouse gas emissions for port and vessel operations produce three strategies. Optimize energy efficiency through operating and engineering. The less energy and fuel that's needed, the better, and this applies to both our emissions and ship operators. Then electrify what you can and where it makes sense. And the final step is transitioning to sustainable fuels where they're needed. This shows our investment in electrification. Here's what we're doing. We're working to electrify cargo handling equipment and some harbor craft. We've installed onshore power at 3 cruise terminals, and we're working to add capacity for commercial fishing and cargo berths. And I want to note that solutions like onshore power might not be the best solution for all ports. It depends upon the sustainability of your energy source to provide that electricity. In Seattle, we have 2 things going for us: the benefit of clean hydropower and that our tenants want it. In fact, Carnival Cruise Lines financed our first onshore power system almost 20 years ago. As stated, efficiency and electricity can only get us so far. We'll need alternative fuels to fully decarbonize the maritime industry. That brings us to the Green Corridor. This is our latest project, exploring the feasibility of a corridor for cruise, the first one under the Clydebank Declaration to do so. What it will take to support, we're going to be studying to see what it will take to support zero-emission cruising between the Pacific Northwest and Alaska. We have a large group, 14 entities in all. This includes home ports, such as our major competitor in Vancouver and Collaborator, as well as the 3 global cruise lines and their brands, and the knowledge partners, including Cruise Lines International Association, CLIA, and the Global Maritime Forum and the Blue Sky Maritime Coalition. The Port of Seattle Commissioner Sam Cho earlier talked about the importance of these collaborations to accelerate priorities, and I can't say how important that is. Our feasibility study will look at what is needed to fuel 4 cruise ships with green methanol for round-trip voyages from home ports in the Pacific Northwest to Alaska by 2032. The study is officially underway, due to be finished in a year, and will identify the strengths and challenges for this corridor. I can tell you confidently there will be 2 things that it will find. First, the solutions will be more expensive than the fossil fuels we use today, and we'll have more information about the price gap between current fuels and green methanol. And second, there'll be safety, storage, bunkering, and training requirements that will require a broad industry approach. So, you might be wondering, what does this mean for developing ports? We think our Cruise Green Corridor can help answer that question. The ports of call shown here are small, isolated, and hard to get to. These communities do not have access to the same energy infrastructure that large ports like Seattle has. As we go forward, the corridor will develop lessons learned to pass on to smaller and developing ports that are wondering how they fit into a zero emissions transition and future. We believe that by looking at diverse ports as a system in a region, a regional approach is one model to approach this. Given all of this, experience I just mentioned, and what we're seeing on the horizon for marine decarbonization, I want to share a few thoughts that I hope will be helpful for developing ports as they start to plan for their role in the energy transition. First, be aware of international policy for vessels. As I mentioned earlier, member states at the International Maritime Organization meet regularly on policy decisions that will ultimately be enacted to drive the shippers' transition and shipping transition away from fossil fuels. While these rules are based on ships, ports have the fuel infrastructure and have a role to play in all of this. You can track and engage through relationships with your national government or check out industry associations. One of the best was right here with Jens. The International Association of Ports and Harbors is very active in the maritime decarbonization work globally. I also want to highlight a specific program at IMO called the Green Voyage 2050. This program matches developing economies looking for support in the energy transition with the developed economies that lend skills or expertise. It's all financed through IMO member states already. The Green Voyage website says they're currently looking for pilot project applications. The Port of Seattle is exploring this program and in discussions with IMO and whether we can serve as a mentor role. That's something that we're looking at and considering. And we recommend that all large ports do so as well. My second recommendation is to cultivate partnerships. Consider using a customer service approach to growing your partnerships. What are the ways your port can make it easier for customers or other port partners to implement sustainability solutions? Start with your established relationships. Look at working with other regional ports, trading partners, sister ports. Our sister ports in Asia include both Kobe, Japan, and Singapore, and of course, tenants and business partners. Ask them what their goals and plans are for the maritime decarbonization. Talk to your business partners and ask what they will need and what would be helpful to work with. And it would be helpful to work towards a joint plan together. None of us can achieve decarbonization in isolation. So finally, be open to opportunities. As we undergo the transition from fossil fuels to e-fuels, renewable energy will be multi-fuel, less and less centralized. Consider what your port is an area, what's your strategic advantage to produce e-fuels or to be in the value chain for these fuels. Look for green corridor opportunities. These are partnerships between ports, among ports, and they're looking to support a zero emission shipping route. You could volunteer to be part of a global research effort or signal interest in joining a pilot project. There are think tanks and other organizations modeling where the best production and supply routes will be for e-fuels. And by participating in these, you may get some helpful analysis and advice. So to summarize, lean into planning that utilizes your ports and region strengths, be open to opportunities and partnerships, and remember, those are the most important things that you can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. The triple bottom line indeed, bringing back into focus the emphasis on public accountability and collaboration to achieve environmental goals while maintaining business drivers and of course commercial viability. Our next presenter is Jongum Yeon. He is the Port R&D Director at Busan Port Authority, specializing in national R&D tasks like crane automation and digital twins to enhance port operations. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, 네, 반갑습니다. 저는 부산
Good morning, distinguished guests. I'm Yeon Jung-hum, Director of the Port Research Department at Busan Port Authority. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the speakers and the audience for attending BIPC 2024. The topic of my presentation is the progress and future challenges of piezoelectric energy harvesting technology development at Busan Port. I will proceed in the following order: project overview, major achievement and progress, and tasks down the road. Let me begin with the project overview. As you know, smart technologies initiated by the fourth industrial revolution are being widely adopted in ports. Smart technologies in the port sector can be broadly categorized into digitalization and unmanned automation. For precise control, which is the core of unmanned automation, cranes have transitioned from fossil fuel and tire-based systems to electric energy. Additionally, due to environmental regulation by the IMO, which limits and aim at phasing out air pollutant emissions, the energy sources for cranes and transport equipment in ports are being replaced with LNG electric and hydrogen electric alternatives. Busan Port's annual energy bill amounts to approximately 70 billion Korean won, about $60 million. Of this, electricity accounts for 56% diesel, 33%, and LNG 1%. In fact, just 15 years ago, diesel accounted for over 50% of the energy mix in the port sector. These changes have led to a continuous increase in the share of electric energy use. However, Busan Port relies entirely on the Korea Electric Power Corporation for electricity, while solar power generation exists as a renewable energy source in the future. In the port, it is not currently being utilized. Starting with Pier 7 of the new port, electricity-powered AGVs have been introduced in Busan Port with plans to replace transport equipment with electricity-powered alternatives for environmental reasons in the Jinhae new port to be developed in the future and existing terminals. Electricity consumption is expected to increase. Now I will explain why we started developing piezoelectric power generation technology. We began to consider what methods are there to produce electricity in ports in a stable and reliable manner. Ports are primarily facilities for handling cargo, and we noticed that the cargo vehicles only pass through specific gates for this purpose. This observation led to initiate the research regarding domestic and international development cases. Israel conducted research in the early 2000s and in South Korea as well. Unfortunately, as far as we know, there has been no successful commercialization of this technology to date. In a port container terminal with 3 berths has approximately 1 million cargo vehicles entries and exits annually with 4 to 6 lanes. Calculating for the entire Busan port, it is estimated to exceed 15 million times per year. Electricity is generated by installing piezoelectric modules for cargo vehicles in the gate lanes, which produce electricity when vehicles pass over them. We use the solar power generation for comparison purposes. The structural diagram is shown in the figure. Compared to the solar power generation, electric power generation has the advantages of low vulnerability to climate change and smaller installation area. However, its drawbacks include the durability issues related to hardware installation and operation. If you take a look at the R&D achievements of this research, the upper right shows the piezoelectric module case made of aluminum for low weight and high strength. It consists of an external module that acts as a buffer and an internal module where piezoelectric devices and vibration plates are installed. As you can see in the bottom left, the internal module contains a total of 16 piezoelectric devices and vibration plates. When a vehicle passes over the piezoelectric module, the internal module moves up and down, causing the vibration plate to move, and electricity is generated from the piezoelectric device connected at the end. And as you can see, while the monitoring sensor provides real-time data on voltage, current, and power generation from the piezoelectric device, but also information on vibration, temperature, and humidity, we created a prototype of the piezoelectric module and conducted a preliminary final field test. The test bed was 1 pier. These are the results of our preliminary test. Prior to the experiment, we hypothesized that the key factors affecting the electricity production and generation through piezoelectric generation would be vehicle weight and speed, and we focused on verifying this. However, as shown in the graph on the left, vehicle speed had the most significant impact. We compared empty vehicles loaded with empty containers, or those loaded with 15-ton cargo container, but found no variation in power generation. Analyzing vehicle speed changes at 5-kilometer intervals up to 50 kilometers per hour, we discovered that the highest voltage was generated at speeds between 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. Given that port transport vehicle is generally limited to speeds below 30 kilometers per hour, we consider this optimal for field application. Next, we entered into a business agreement with a terminal operator to conduct a field test at an actual container terminal. And we ran 8 piezoelectric devices. And as you can see, we installed the smallest unit of 8 modules per set. The left photo shows the initial installation at the outbound lane of Newport Terminal 1 individual module installation led to misalignment as the cement hardened and the edge of the module cracked as numerous vehicles passed over them. That is why we addressed this issue in the second round of installation. After module installation, we set up an integrated panel based on IT sensors at the site and developed an integrated monitoring system, which allows real-time monitoring from the Newport Terminal 1 office. An integrated monitoring system enabled real-time checking of electricity generation per module. And the bottom left photo shows the actual test site right before painting. The video on the right demonstrates the power generation test conducted on 20,000 vehicles over a period of about 3 months. Next, we pursued domestic production to secure price competitiveness for the ceramic material, which is the core of the piezoelectric module. Globally, only 2 to 3 companies can develop ceramics used for piezoelectricity, but they are sold at relatively high prices with a minimum order quantity of 200 pieces. The pandemic caused a surge in raw material prices, and ceramic materials saw a price increase of at least 3 to 4 times compared to pre-pandemic levels. The price per unit rose from $150 before the pandemic to over $800 after. To secure price competitiveness for piezoelectric generation, we sought advice from experts at the Korean relevant institute and commissioned domestic companies to develop ceramic devices. And you can see that experimental results indicate that our domestically produced devices generate 4 to 6 times more electricity than foreign products and are expected to cost 1/5 of the price. In particular, we focused on improving the material by adding a ceramic surface layer to address the frequent breakage and non-generation issues of foreign products. And we have gone through a total of 11 certification tests, including dust waterproof properties and so on. Regarding IPRs, we have a total of 5 cases. 1 has been registered, and 4 are currently under review additionally. And we participated in last year's sustainability report competition in the eco-friendly category at the International Association of Ports and Harbors. And as for the economic feasibility of this, with an equal investment of approximately 120 million Korean won or $90,000, the estimated annual power generation of 130 megawatts for solar and 200 megawatts for piezoelectric. However, solar power requires 1,500 square meters of space, while piezoelectricity only needs 15 square meters, about 1% of the solar requirement. The investment recovery period is about 9 years for solar power, whereas it's only 5 years for piezoelectric generation. And as for our future tasks, our first objective is to enhance the durability and maintenance of the piezoelectric module structure. We are currently manufacturing modules using stainless steel instead of aluminum due to its superior durability and strength, and additional field tests scheduled for the latter half of this year. And furthermore, we plan to apply the APDM, a rubber material, to the piezoelectric module housing cover to prevent water ingress during rainy seasons or monsoon seasons. And our second task is to improve the output of piezoelectric devices and develop an integrated vibrator. We plan to enhance the output function of domestically produced piezoelectric devices and develop a new integrated vibrator to replace the existing separate type. During field test with 20,000 vehicles, we observed frequent damage at connection points due to the disparate nature of piezoelectric devices and vibrators. To address this, we aim to develop integrated design. And third, we will reduce the electrical output losses from piezoelectric elements and device harvesting capabilities. And we also are developing a commercialization strategy and conducting a thorough business feasibility analysis. And next year, a spin-off of the business is planned. So far, I have shared with you the current status and future challenges of port-specific piezoelectric energy harvesting technology development. Decarbonization is quite important, but how to secure electricity energy source is more important than anything else, I believe. Developing new energy sources is very difficult and challenging, and I hope the great success of piezoelectric energy harvesting technology can settle and successfully adopted at the Port of Busan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Director. It was a great pleasure to see the pilot in its early stages with yourself and other BPA colleagues last year. And it's fantastic to see the growth of the project and the progress that is coming up even further, with significant potential for piezoelectric energy harvesting as part of the toolkit for maritime decarbonization, port decarbonization particularly. Our last presenter today is Duncan McIntosh. He's the Senior Regional Maritime Specialist at the Asian Development Bank, focusing on maritime decarbonization and regional port strategies, which he will be sharing with us. Duncan, over to you.
Thank you, Yesham. At the Asian Development Bank, we are guided by our Strategy 2030 vision, and that is to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. And we do this by providing loans, technical assistance, grants, and equity investments in our member countries. And if you look at our total operations on any given year, we average about $30 billion. And if you break that down by sector, the largest sector is usually transport, averages around a third of our total operations. Now, traditionally, our transport investments are land-based, roads, bridges, etc. But we do invest in ports, and some examples from the Pacific I can share with you include the Samoa Enhancing Safety, Security, and Sustainability of Apia Port project. Now, this was financed by a $65 million grant, and we're very fortunate to have Samoa Port Authority in the room with us so they can speak a bit more in detail on this project. From Nauru, this is very exciting because we are building the first ever deepwater port in the country, where previously ships had to anchor in the lee of the island and offload and load via lighters. So this will make a tremendous difference for the country. In Tuvalu, we're enhancing the inter-island connectivity with a $50 million grant by designing and developing small-scale harbors in the outer island atolls. We've also recently replaced the passenger and cargo vessel, the Manu Folau, which was unserviceable, with a brand new vessel that was just launched last month, very exciting, the Manusina, and this was done with a $30 million grant. Now, last year was a very pivotal year for ADB as we underwent a complete reorganization of the bank. And one of the shifts that came along with that is what we term our climate shift. And you may have seen ADB's President Massa in the press recently positioning ADB as your region's climate bank. And this is not just rhetoric, but it comes with some really ambitious targets. And one of those targets is to achieve $100 billion in climate finance by 2030. And if you put that up against what I said is our annual total operations of $30 billion, to have $100 billion in climate finance alone is a big step up. So to achieve this, we are really searching out what we call emerging areas for the bank to invest in, where we can take a programmatic approach to financing large-scale projects in our member countries. So one of the sectors where we believe there's a huge opportunity is maritime decarbonization. So we've identified the financing challenges in maritime decarbonization to be enormous. We estimate over 1.9 trillion will be needed to reach the IMO's target of net zero by 2050. And interestingly, we anticipate that 87% of that will be needed in the land-based infrastructure and fuel production facilities. This represents an upfront expense and a new type of investment, so it's not necessarily going to be easy to support with traditional maritime financing. Therefore, we need to accelerate the pathways for zero-carbon bunker fuels to enable the industry to make confident long-term investments. And we also need to enable our developing member countries to adapt the port infrastructure to climate change. With those challenges come opportunities, however, and we recognize that all of the future fuels are at a minimum 2.5 times less energy dense than fossil fuels. So this means that ships will require more frequent bunkering stops, which opens the door for potential new bunkering hubs. And if those could be in some of our developing member countries, that could yield large economic benefits. We also know that port infrastructure is going to be key to decarbonizing the maritime industry. And when we invest in port infrastructure, we also want to enhance the resilience because we can show that that often yields a 4-to-1 benefit for every dollar that we invest there. Today, we can attack the low-hanging fruit by fast-tracking electrification of port operations, like providing shore power access. And yes, that can be done prior to committing the capital to develop that additional renewable energy capacity. We also recognize that 40% of maritime cargo today is energy related. So ports are already at the nexus of the energy supply, and therefore they will be at the nexus of the energy transition. So decarbonization will depend on the development of electrofuels at or near ports. And we can support this and encourage ports to be first movers by supporting green corridors. So we want to take a programmatic approach to develop what we are really positioning as a flagship for the bank, our Maritime Decarbonization Initiative. And to do this, we want to ensure a just transition with financial and technical support to vulnerable shipping-reliant countries, such as small island developing states, and those that are going to be most affected by the additional costs imposed by the energy transition and the additional shipping costs that will come along with it. We want to fast-track the implementation of electrification and smart digital solutions at our ports. As we've seen yesterday and today, improved efficiency yields reduced greenhouse gas emissions. We want to promote regional cooperation and integration for the harmonization of regional green shipping policies. And we want to particularly pay attention to the needs of the vulnerable developing member countries to enable a level playing field and minimize uncertainty there. We want to support the development of green corridors, as we mentioned. We want to also build partnerships with the private sector and industry so we can share knowledge and foster collaboration between industry and our developing member countries. We want to enable our member countries to decarbonize their domestic fleets, those fishing, inter-island, inter-waterway vessels, domestic harbor craft. And we also need to ensure that the workforce is adequately trained for this transition, as a large percentage of international seafarers are coming from our member countries. Finally, we want to address that financing gap that it's going to take to decarbonize the maritime sector. And we have proposed a new multi-donor fund at ADB that we hope to launch within the next year. And that would be a Green Ports and Maritime Decarbonization Fund. And this proposal is a result of a study that we initiated last year that assessed the financing landscape in our member countries for financing these types of investments. And what we found was there is a gap indeed in the financing landscape. When we surveyed our port operators in our member countries, they told us it's access to financing and funding that was the main barrier for doing more in green ports and maritime decarbonization. So what we're proposing at the bank, and we hope to be able to launch and introduce formally soon, would be a Green Ports and Maritime Decarbonization Fund that could support blended finance in both sovereign and non-sovereign lending by adding concessionality to loans, equity, grants, and guarantees. And where this might intervene in our ADB project lifecycle would be at the upstream level with governance projects like developing green port policies. At the midstream level, this would look like the technical assistance and feasibility studies that we do. And then finally, at the downstream level, we could start to build infrastructure on the ground, whether it's solar and wind, battery energy storage for renewable energy, or whether we're doing the really long-term vision projects like supporting and building alternative fuel bunkering. So with that, I'll thank you very much.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank you very much. We've heard so far the technology, digitalization, including AI and the environmental initiatives that can help with decarbonization and financing that can help facilitate it all. Please join me in thanking all our presenters as we usher in our panelists. Would our panelists please come to the podium? Indonesia, India, and Sri Lanka delegates, please.
And our audience panelist, yes. So please take a seat. We have designated seats over here.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is one world indeed. And unity and collaboration is the theme of our conference. Our panelists today joining us are Mehdi Utama, Senior Vice President of Transformation Planning and Management at PT Pelindo Terminal, PT Kemas. Pelindo is the state-owned enterprise that operates over 90% of the container ports in Indonesia, among other activities as well, which we will hear more about. And next, we will hear from Nilabra Dasgupta, Deputy Chairman of the Paradip Port Authority in India, which is the largest port in the country, as indicated in the figures from last fiscal year, 2023 and 24, handling over 145 million tons of cargo, including bulk. Quite a significant amount. And next we have Mr. Nirval Silva, the Harbour Master of Sri Lanka Ports Authority, overseeing all commercial ports and navigation aids in Sri Lanka. In the order that I've introduced you, if I may come to you, could you please describe the ongoing and planned initiatives from the ports under your respective mandates in Indonesia, in Paradip Port in India, and Sri Lanka, please, for decarbonization and green ports? Over to you, Mehdi.
Okay. Thank you very much for the questions. At Pelindo, we recognize the urgent needs to reduce environmental impacts and also to align with global decarbonization goals. Indonesia, being an archipelagic nation with large network of ports, play a critical role in the maritime sector. And our decarbonization efforts is targeting operational efficiency, electrifications of port equipments, and adoption of renewable energy. One of key initiatives that has been improving our operational efficiency is implementing operational transformations through standardizations and systemizations. In standardization stage, we focus on people development, building people capacity to create a high-skill workforce. And we build effective organizations with standardized operational process based on planning and control. In systemization stage, we develop single systems that integrates customer portal, terminal operating systems, and billing systems. Also, we develop auto gates, and we just started terminal booking systems. An end-to-end process of terminal process, we manage it in a facility. We call it integrated planning and control room, where all the planners and also controllers sit together in one room. We integrate the marine service, terminal service, and also safety and traffic control. And in the larger port and also logistic ecosystems, together with the port authority, with the cargo owners, shipping lines, we are connected with the port community system. We call it INAPORTNET. And also there is a national logistic ecosystem platform which is initiated by government of Indonesia. the operational transformations is very long process, which we began 3 years ago, following the merger of 4 Pelindo. Pelindo 1, 2, 3, 4 is now has merged into one holding. We operate 71 branches with 140 business units. In terms of container terminal, we are handling 32 terminals with 17 million TEUs annual throughput. And in these 32 terminals, each has varying maturity level. Some ports are already modern, affiliated with some of global operators like Hutchison, DP World, PSA, Mitsui. But while the others are relatively poor conditions, requiring fulfillment of minimum standard of facility, infrastructure, IT infrastructure, and also equipments. And those poor conditions located mostly in eastern part of Indonesia. And this is the main focus of our transformations. Out of these 32 terminals, we have successfully standardized the 25 terminals, 7 already systemized, but still a lot of terminals need to be transformed. But with this achievement, currently the resulting impact includes improved productivity and also better port performance. We can reduce almost 43% of port stay times. And this is with the better planning and also equipment usage. It also leads to the efficiency of truck turnaround times in the terminal. And this is not only saving times, but also reducing the fuel consumption and also emissions, not only for terminal, but also for the shipping lines. And then, this is to show that with this kind of achievement, we can reduce almost 7,500 tons of CO2 annually. And this is to demonstrate that even with the small and basic or fundamentals operational transformations, it leads to significant outcomes, especially on decarbonizations. But humbly speaking, that we are still a long way journey because there's a lot of transformations ongoing in Indonesia. Another ongoing initiatives is actually electrifying our port equipments. 236 port equipment already electrified. The target in 2030 is 439 units. And also additionally, we installed onshore power supply, just to move away from the so the vessel during berthing can plug with onshore power, reducing the reliance on diesel generators. And we also integrate renewable energy into our operations. Solar power plant have been installed in certain terminals. And lastly, to preserve a natural habitat, we also having a reception facility to consolidate and segregate the domestic and vessel-generated waste. We have wastewater treatment and doing a mangroves and tree planting. By the end of 2023, we are able to plant mangroves almost 600 hectares and 600,000 tree planting. So that's all from Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mehdi. And thank you for also underlining all these very interesting initiatives and aspirations to do even more that you've shared with us. It's important also, the takeaway from your messages is that it is possible to leapfrog technology and bring in technology, but it's important to also keep in view that leapfrogging systems, institutional capacity, absorption capacity may not always be possible, especially when such variations exist even within the same domain. So our first ports of call heading out from Busan was Indonesia. Allow me to come to India next then.
Thank you, Ashim. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm privileged to address this august audience. Now, I represent, as you know, a country of 1.5 billion people, and we have almost 2,023 operational ports, mine being one of them. And so, as we can see, and India is one of the fastest growing economies and has one of the fastest rates. In India, 90% of the volume of trade is moved through shipping. And therefore, the challenges and the canvas is vast, but I also believe that the opportunity is therefore endless. Now, to address that, in the Convention of Parties, our nation committed to certain goals. We intend to be net zero by 2070. And our Honorable Prime Minister set forth a philosophy of 5 Rs, which we call Panchamrit. So it is reduce, refuse, recycle, repurpose, and reuse. So to capture that, specifically in the shipping sector, we set out with a broad framework, which we call the Harit Sagar. It means the Green Ocean Initiative. Now, the idea was to decarbonize as well as take all other energy efficient steps. And therefore, a comprehensive structure was made in which there could be targeted outcomes, there could be focused monitoring, and most importantly, we could set out key performance indicators, which in this case we call environmental performance indicators. Because with this vast canvas and these many ports, it's very difficult to exactly quantify what is the progress. And until you do that, you can't set out the targets as well as the opportunities therein. So there are 12 broad targets under which the Harit Sagar or the Green Ocean Initiative operates with an overall overarching aim of decarbonizing the shipping sector in India. Now, one of the first is increasing the green cover, which is a very simple 101 fundamental. So we are targeting 20% coverage, afforestation coverage by 2030 and increase it to 33% by 2047. In my port, Paradip Port, we have set out with a target of planting 1 million trees by 2025. We have already done around 3.5 lakhs, 7 lakh to go. And naturally, that brings in a lot of benefits in terms of carbon sequestration, as well as minimizing the impact. We are on the East Coast, so we have a very violent monsoon. So the afforestation helps us in reducing the impact of such climate vagaries. Apart from that, the second vertical that the policy framework sets out is equipment, greenification of the equipment, including the vehicles as well as the other major equipment. We do that by shifting it to electrification as well as to other alternative sources. And the targets therein is 50% by 2030 and then 70% by 2047. We are also looking at greenification of the crafts. So that includes stepwise movement. So right now we are targeting the pilot boats, the tugboats. After that we will be shifting to e-fuels for our surveillance boats, that is the naval and the Coast Guard boats. And eventually we will cover all the EXIM boats, the EXIM crafts. To move ahead, Paradip has already moved ahead with the coastal shipping, where we are trying to have ideas to kind of move to green fuels. Apart from that, we are also looking at alternative sources of energy. So Paradip, along with 2 other ports of India, have been designated as the green hydrogen hubs for the country. My port has had close to 60,000 crores of investment, where we are setting up green hydrogen plants. The port is setting up a 5 million metric ton renewable berth on the east coast. On the west coast, we have another port, a large port, the Deen Dayal Upadhyay port, which is also setting up a green hydrogen hub. And in the south of the country also, we have a port, the Tuticorin port, which is looking at setting up a green hydrogen hub. So apart from that, we are also shifting focus to coastal shipping, which gives us volume benefits and reduces the carbon footprint in terms of movement of bulk commodities through, say, smaller trucks or trains. And therefore, for that also, we are targeting shore-to-ship energy supplies. And therein, we are focusing on the origin port and the destination port complementarity, where if we don't have that in both the ports, it is a non-starter. So there again, we are looking at how to bring in complementarity in terms of the origin ports as well as the destination ports being equally upgraded technologically, because that will give us the efficiency in terms of the decarbonization targets that we have. We are also looking at energy utilization in more innovative ways. So we are looking at green water harvesting, we are looking at maybe using the refuse, say, from LNG chilling plants, the water that is received can be utilized, and with an overall target of, by 2050, making all ports completely dependent on reused or recyclable water. For my port, we are a zero water discharge port, zero wastewater discharge port. At present, we recycle all our wastewater. We have a 6 million liter per day capacity of recycling, which we are ramping up to 16 million liters per day. And Paradeep does not have any wastewater discharge. That water is recycled and then used for pollution response. So we do water sprinkling, we do defogging. And then apart from that, there are certain other things that we are looking at in terms of making the buildings more green. So energy efficient buildings, we are digitalizing in a major way, in which we have certain initiatives like Sagar Setu, the NLP Marine. Then we have something called the EBS in all the ports to reduce the paper usage, because it's a lot of people using a lot of paper, and therefore we are trying to digitalize the whole ecosystem. We are also looking at trying to bring in more alternative fuels. So there is something now, along with the Green Ocean Initiative, we have also floated the Green Vessel Initiative, which is called the Harit Nauka. So we are looking at the Green Tug Transition Initiative, and from initially greenifying the ocean faring vessels, tugs, pilot boats, we are now moving into the inland waterways, where even the passenger vessels will be greenified, and we are targeting 1,000 inland vessels to be shifted to green fuels in the next 10 years. So overall, how do we capture this? By bringing in EPIs, as I spoke about, energy performance indicators. They are broadly 3. The first one looks at air, water, noise, and effluent indicators. We capture them in terms of the percentage targets and the percentage outcomes. We also have the environmental impact parameters, where all the rest of the performance indicators are captured. And we also have the waste performance, the waste management performance indicators, in which case the air, water, soil, and other such things are captured in terms of the targets as well as the outcomes. Apart from this, we are also focusing on the marine ecosystem, because that's something like, for example, we have our mangroves, which are fast diminishing, because as we advance, we do have an impact on that. We also have the marine flora, the fauna. So there is an overall comprehensive approach. And insofar as my port is concerned, we are taking very strong steps towards greenifying, and we have a target that with whatever targets we have set in the comprehensive global the document that we have for our nation, we should be able to reach our targets much, much faster than that.
Thank you very much for that, Nilabra. If I may underline some of the excellent points that you've made for further attention, the importance of national strategies that can guide and support state level as well as port level initiatives. The importance of an ecosystem approach, looking at all the different stakeholders that are involved in shipping, maritime, ports operations, looking at multimodal trucks to the yard to vessels themselves, and of course OPS in the meantime, including some of the other green energy initiatives through electrification, green hydrogen, and I believe you also mentioned the opportunities for decreasing increasing the energy efficiency of some of the buildings that you have under your jurisdiction. We look forward to Paradeep leading the charge towards maritime decarbonization. If I may come to you next, Nirmal. Sri Lanka, Colombo particularly, is the largest transshipment port in South Asia. Could you walk us through some of the green initiatives that you have in Sri Lanka?
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for inviting me for this conference. First time from Sri Lanka. And it's an honor to be talking to you all out here. As you all know, or maybe some of you may not know, Colombo is the main port in Sri Lanka, although we have about 4 commercial ports. Colombo, out of Colombo, about 95% of all imports and exports go through Colombo. And Out of what we handle in Colombo, also about 83% are transshipment. So we are the main transshipment hub in South Asia. So our main efforts in green initiatives are centered around Port of Colombo. Main things I would say, at the moment, we are expanding our port. We had 3 terminals, one state-run Jaya Container Terminal, and South Asia Gateway Terminal, which was privatized in 1999, and then Colombo International Container Terminal, which is also another PPP project, which was done in 2013. So at the moment, there are 2 terminals being developed. That is the East Container Terminal, which is being developed by the Ports Authority, and West Container Terminal, which is renamed as Colombo West International Terminal, which is another PPP project with Adani Group of India and John Keel's of Sri Lanka. So in the new terminals, both these terminals are fully automated and on electrification. There is no manual intervention in the yard operations. So on that front, there will be, we do expect a lot of achievement compared to what we have been achieving with the existing terminals. And the 2 new terminals will be having the automated gates, as well as movement between the ship-to-shore crane and the yard cranes with hybrid straddle carriers. And the 2 existing terminals out of the 3, they also have converted all their yard cranes into electric cranes. Earlier they were diesel-powered RTGs. Now they all were converted into electric RTGs. So those are the aspects in converting, reducing the emissions in port development. And also the 2 new terminals will be with the facilities for shore power supply. So in that aspect, we expect to provide, looking at the future. Just to mention that also our government has the target of 30% reduction by 2030. To tell you frankly, with our economic situation, which was a couple of years ago, our efforts in reaching there got affected, but we are still striving to get there as a government. We are still striving to reach our 30% goal by 2030. And on the other hand, we also had an initiative with University of Genoa to have a green corridor between Sri Lanka and Port of Genoa. We had the pre-feasibility studies done early this year, but then we were going to do the feasibility studies, but then we ran into funding problems and it didn't proceed much further. We are awaiting further actions on that front. And also in the port of Trincomalee, it's a natural deep water harbor. We have lots of land by the Ports Authority just around the port. So at the moment, we have given out almost 200 hectares for solar power energy. 3 companies who have already have power purchase agreements with the electricity board. We have given out to total will come to about 60 megawatts. So that way we are providing whatever land available for renewable energy. And also we have another PPP project with the Adani Group of India for a 500 megawatt wind power generation system in the north of the country. So those are the initiatives the Sri Lankan government as a whole and the port sector in particular are looking at. On the other hand, there are about over 10,000 vehicles coming in and out of the port per day. So we have had a lot of congestion because Port of Colombo being in the center of the port of city of Colombo, with the container traffic and all the traffic which is coming to Colombo, there is a lot of traffic congestion on the roads, which adds to emissions. Now we are having a port access elevated highway. I believe that will be opened towards the end of this year, which we hope will give a lot of reduction in the traffic, because there is access to the port as well as through users also there is a road going. So with that, we expect to reduce a lot of emissions by the traffic congestion which is existing around the port of Colombo. So those are the main aspects of Sri Lanka and port of Colombo. And looking at the other ports, like Port of Galle is a smaller port, but we have opened up as a tourism port because it is in the world, within the port city of Galle, which is a World Heritage Site. So we have called for RFPs for developing a cruise terminal and a marina, all with all the low emission and aspects of the thing. So all the new developments which are expected to come, we are looking at improving the reduction of emissions.
Thank you very much, Nirmal, for that. Allow me to stay with you very briefly, about 2 minutes each, if I may, request from each panelist. You've already highlighted the importance of international and regional collaboration. You referenced Genoa as a sister port, as well as initiatives with India. What is the role of international collaboration, bringing it back to our theme for the conference, Ports in Unity? What are some of the ways that we can collaborate further from the perspective of Sri Lanka? 2 minutes, please.
Yes, one thing, as I mentioned, this corridor between Port of Genoa and Sri Lanka, but to go ahead with it. On the other hand, we have recently, earlier this year, we signed a MOU with Port of Virginia in USA that is mainly on improving the capacity building. This is under a program by the US government on a program called Colombo Plan, a 3-year plan which started in March this year for 3 years in capacity building of the port sector employees in all sectors, not only port operations, HR and all the port-related personnel. So that is one thing. And also at the moment, we are finalizing a draft for a collaboration between Port of Colombo and Port of Tianjin, which is to be signed. It is at the draft stage now. It has been, terms have been agreed. So that is another thing. I would like to mention here, I saw in Mr. Duncan's presentation the new fund. So as I was really amazed yesterday when Mr. Noel mentioned about far back in 2009, a $1 billion fund which was available for them to uplift the things. And I thought how lucky we would have been if we got at least part of such funding, because for a developing country, it's difficult. So we would look forward to some support from ADB as well as whichever other international organizations in trying to achieve our goals in this endeavor.
Thank you very much. Mehdi, very briefly, 2 minutes, please.
So at this moment, we are still learning progressively and starting to define the digitalizations and sustainability strategy. So we are opening up participations and also cooperations with our regions neighbors, all of you, to actually helping in developing the green ports networks and also green corridors, especially from Indonesia, because it's allowing us to get best practice and also technical expertise to implement new and green technologies. In terms of collaborations, public-private partnership it is very vital. We are also looking for alternatives to secure green financings to fund our many of our green initiatives. So
Thank you very much.
Basically,
Thank you very much for that. And I know also Pilindo has been reaching out to some of the Latin American countries for biomass technology and other initiatives with European countries as well. Please.
Yeah, I would frame it in terms of three pivots, the collaboration. The first one is investment and financing opportunities. The second one is innovation and technological input opportunities. And the third one is sharing of best practices. All these three pivots have to be covered if we have to get our decarbonization goals. And the three broad areas in which I see exciting opportunities in the Indian shipping and port sector are the first, as I mentioned, the green hydrogen mission that we have undertaken. The second is we are also part of the Indian International Solar Alliance, which is a conglomeration of 125 odd countries. And right now, for example, there is a port in the west coast, the Kandla port, which is producing surplus solar energy, and we are sending it to the grid. So we can look at expanding that across the ports and shipping ecosystem in India. And the third important is the latest one, where our initiative through our Honorable Prime Minister was about the Global Biofuels Initiative, where we are looking at alternative fuels like ethanol, methanol, and biogas. And in the ports and shipping sector, that also opens up a massive opportunity in terms of the investment financing opportunities, the technological innovation opportunities, and the collaboration with, say, our other sister ports to get the best practices in.
Thank you for that excellent summary. Allow me to come to you, Steve and Roger, in terms of the same question, regional collaboration opportunities for maritime decarbonization.
Well, I can just add, I mean, they're just a little bit, because I think my distinguished panelists have also hit a lot of those. You know, I think those, both the organizations, and especially the sister ports, I think sister ports were originally developed for other reasons, but I think now they've evolved into this valuable, especially on decarbonization, those lessons learned. I think ports in general compete. We look at things like competing on cargoes and other things, but I think on decarbonization, it's going to take all of us to work together to set up that global system to decarbonization. And I think that those sister ports are an important part of that. But the organization, you know, like the IAPH, and looking for those things where we can get together and those best practices that we were just discussing, because I think that innovation that sparked, or the way that somebody approaches something, even just in the discussion I just heard now, there's ideas there that you can take back and do and bring back to where you are in order to bring those forward. So I think, and I think conferences such as this, if you're set up specifically on outcomes and maybe discussions where you're engaged and talking about exchanging specifically best practices in a format that is really good for exchanging ideas and building those relationships. But I think for us at the Port of Seattle, some of those sister port relationships have then led to collaboration of those sister ports as well. So that's grown within that, so that it's kind of grown on those like-minded ports in order to advance that. And I view it as the green corridors, especially the lessons learned on that, because it's like a bell curve, and you're going to be on the front of the bell curve, and that's a really important thing to advance this work and get to the stage where you're actually putting pilot projects and getting things into place, because that's going to be the key to doing that, because it's you can't just turn a switch and all of a sudden we're going to decarbonize a global industry. So it's going to take all those pieces.
Thank you very much. Roger?
Yeah, thank you. Well said. I probably don't have to add a lot, but these relationships, especially on the international side, is so important. And we heard about knowledge exchange, best practices, and that's exactly what we are doing in learning from our partners, for example, Singapore, Shanghai. Everybody is good at doing something. Well, for example, we're fairly mature in our For example, the truck emissions reduction, the shore power infrastructure, we're pretty good at doing that. So we're very willingly wanting to pass that information or share that information with the ports that are still working on that. But at the same time, admittedly, we have started our data infrastructure initiative a lot slower than other Asian ports. So naturally, those are the areas that we would love to, gain knowledge from our partnership. And as a commercial person at the port, there's also good for the commercial side because through these green relationships, we can also help each other in growing our cargo routes and develop our cargo clusters within our port area. So for me, it's a win-win situation. And also on the technology side, since we're already exchanging data, these kind of data is very important for our stakeholders, especially big importers that are in the U.S. They have business throughout the world, right? So they also want to know exactly where their containers are. Well, we can provide that within our terminals, but through the data exchange with other ports, we can also get that information. Again, as an alternative benefit to the relationship and the partnership with the international port friends.
Thank you. Follow up, Steve?
Can I just add one thing? It reminded me of a conversation I had in an elevator, and it was about this idea of knowledge exchange. It said we should be doing that and setting it up between ports, and the idea was to make consultants very unhappy. So if we can pass the knowledge, and it said it may make some consultants unhappy, but if we can do that, we advance the work quickly, and we don't all have to do the same, discover the same path.
Maybe the consultants can work on that and give us better ideas on that then.
So we're not robbing anyone of their jobs. Thank you very much. Excellent points, both from all members of the panel. In fact, if I may just highlight the last point, ports are businesses, so we do compete, but we don't compete on information, data, and good practices. Those are for sharing because at the end of the day, we share the goal of sustainable growth and sustainable operations. With that, I'm reminded rather closely by our moderators that we have the exciting trip to the Busan port. So we will request very briefly comments and questions from the audience, starting with our participants from Samoa and Fiji. We have Ausetalia Tanuvasa, Assistant General Manager of Samoa Ports Authority, who's joining us today, as well as Ms. Florence Nunn, the Manager of Planning and Strategy Implementation at Fiji Ports Corporation. Could you share with us some of the unique economic and environmental contexts that your ports, your organizations face, and some of the maritime decarbonization initiatives that you have? I believe the microphone is on. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Yasmin. Talofa, and good afternoon, distinguished guests, fellow speakers, and also ladies and gentlemen. Privileged to address you all to discuss the challenges faced by Apia Port, which is the only international port in Samoa, and it's about the 10% of the footprint of Busan Port as well. Our port plays a vital role in Samoan economy and also connecting to the global markets with facilitating imports, exports, as well as tourism. Like many ports in small island states, we face similar challenges, and we need demand for innovative and sustainable solutions. Challenges involves the aging infrastructure in our ports, with the development of Apia Port in several decades ago, and we are struggling to keep up with the pace of increasing demands of modern maritime trade. Also, larger vessels coming into the port with port infrastructure facing capacity. So, as we also look at tourism perspectives, we have yet to receive bigger cruise vessels for the development of Samoa's economy as well. We're also looking at climate change vulnerabilities with sea level rising, and coastal erosions, increased frequency of weather patterns that's coming into the Pacific. These environmental risks, we have sort of a long-term viability to our port and require urgent adaptation. With that, we are looking at the Asian Development Bank has come up with the Green Port Initiative and looking at transforming our port, which is a project that to transform this our ports into sort of like a bold step towards looking at how we can minimize the costs and also sustainable, resilient Apia port. With this project, we mainly look at carbon reduction, and it includes plans to integrate renewable energy sources such as solar powers into the port's daily operations, rainwater catchment, and using portable tanks for cleaning purposes in the port. Also looks at shifting sustainable energy with reduced reliance on fossil fuels, cut greenhouse gas emissions, and lower operational costs. The Green Port Initiative will invest in the port's infrastructure as well, includes construction of climate resilient seawalls, also flood management systems, enhance drainage systems to protect from storm surges and coastal erosions. These measures will safeguard our port from the increasing risk posed by rising sea levels as well as extreme weather patterns. We're also looking at, with this initiative, the introduction of a digital system for port operations as well, and real-time tracking, automated logistics, and smart cargo handling solutions. And with all that, we have looked at identifying ways to reduce the transport into the port of Apia. From that, looking ahead, it's a considerable challenges. We are optimistic about the future, and we'll be with the backing of our international partners, such as the Asian Development Bank. We are looking at implementing more innovative projects, and we are confident we can transform this port into a more sustainable, resilient, and efficient hub for trade developments. Last but not least, we thank our ADP for bringing us here and doing all the arrangements for me and my friend at the back to address you guys today. Also, we'd like to commend the President and Port of Busan on your 20th anniversary and also hosting a very successful BIPC 2024. Kasamida, have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Osetalia. Florence, briefly please, from Fiji.
Firstly, I would like to thank Busan Port Authority and the Asian Development Bank, as well as the Korean Maritime Institute for giving us this opportunity to participate in this year's conference. For developing ports in the Pacific and Oceania region, this type of conference provides a valuable platform to gain industry knowledge, learn from global experts, and network with peers. These interactions are critical for fostering innovation and implementing best practices to drive sustainable growth in our region's port infrastructure. So like globally, ports also play a vital role in Fiji's economy, and connectivity is serving as a critical hub for trade, transportation, and logistics. And Fiji Ports, as a port management company, we look after the port infrastructure together with our associate company, Fiji Ports Terminal, which looks after the cargo and terminal operations at two of our main ports, which is Suva and Lautoka. So mostly the importance of ports in Fiji, it's mostly for trade and commerce, tourism, fisheries, and regional connectivity for the other Pacific Island countries. Some of the impact of climate change, as my colleague has mentioned, rising sea levels, it's a common within the Pacific ports. Also disruptions in global shipping, so changes in weather patterns can also disrupt shipping routes, leading to delays and increased costs. which impacts Fiji's trade-dependent economy. Some of the green port initiatives which Fiji Ports has implemented is such as the development and implementation of a green port master plan. This plan is a dedicated roadmap for reducing our environmental impact. While it is interdependent, this plan strategically aligns with Fiji Ports' 5-year strategic plan, as it is important. It shows Fiji Ports' commitment to achieving multiple SDGs goals. Apart from that, we have also achieved ISO certifications in environment management, quality management, OHS, and recently last year, organization resilience. And this year, we are working towards adopting ISO standard in energy management certification requirements, as well as ISO standard for adaptation to climate change. In terms of sustainable infrastructure, green port is something which is very important for Fiji Ports, and we are committed in implementing sustainable practices within our projects. This includes adopting eco-friendly construction materials such as green tech shield in our infrastructure, which is implementing erosion control measures and minimizing the environmental impact. The other areas are waste management, also installation of an electric incinerator at a Suva port. Some of the maritime decarbonization effects, compliance with global standards. Fiji is committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which aligns to the IMO's goal to cut global shipping emissions by at least 50% by 2015. The other areas are energy efficient technologies. We continue to implement quick win projects in these areas. The other area is carbon offset projects. Fiji Ports is committed to invest in maritime carbon offset projects, such as replanting initiatives, which is also part of our CSR responsibility activities and achieving sustainability goals. Ports in Fiji are central to both the nation's economic resilience and its climate adaptation strategies. By moving towards green ports and supporting maritime decarbonization, Fiji can improve the sustainability of its infrastructure while mitigating the impact of climate change. And some of the key challenges which my colleague here has also mentioned, we also have an aging infrastructure which was built in the early 1960s. The other challenges are limitations with expertise and skills, where we have to mostly 90% have to outsource from international countries, migration of our skilled people, also financial restrictions. Fiji Ports is 100% self-funded. We don't have any borrowing, so some of our finance gets committed in our rehabilitation of projects. And lastly, one of the major challenges is access to climate funds for our green projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Florence. Next, we have Mohammed Iqbal Mirza, Chief Operating Officer of PT Persero Batam in Indonesia. Iqbal, Batam has a very comprehensive decarbonization strategy that entails several elements. What are they and what are the challenges in achieving them? Very briefly, please.
Yeah, thank you, Yasim. Thank you very much for this opportunity to promote Batam. Batam is one port that in Indonesia is not operated by Pelindo. That's the only one. And this location is very strategic. We are the neighbor of Singapore and also neighbor of Tanjung Pelepas. And with this strategic position, unfortunately Batam is under development. So we just modernized the port last year. Yeah, last year we just modernized with the new equipment, STS crane, as well as the RTGs, and all using electrification. And our step-by-step development of Batam, number one, we will develop the infrastructure. Because this is new infrastructure, that's why this is easy, more easy to make it become electrification and decarbonization. And number two, we also improve the productivity. With this productivity is, I think currently is very good. That's why number three, we already have the direct call from Batam to other world. There is 2 shipping companies that already have a direct call. This is the first time since 40 years that Batam has no direct call. This is the first time direct call from Evergreen and SITC. That's why with this direct call, we can reduce the logistic costs. become right now. Previously to China is 1,000 US dollar. Right now it's only 400 US dollar, meaning there is 600 US dollar per TEUs that we have reduced because of this development of Batam. And the strategy of the decarbonization, there is 3 strategies. Number 1, we use the electrification. All of the equipment that we use right now is using the electric. This can achieve the efficiency up to 75% compared to using the fossil energy. And this happened already. And number 2, currently we also develop the terminal for the hub of the green ammonia and as well as the blue ammonia. We have the 100-hectare land in front of Singapore. We developed this storage tank with the capacity is 400,000 meter cubic for this renewable energy, as well as sustainable aircraft fuel in that location. And number 3, currently we also developed the gas engine power plant for our terminal. You know, Batam is very small island, but with this quite big number of gases, natural gases from the Natuna, we will use this natural gas for the electrification, for the future of our terminal become the new and green terminal and also the most prominent port in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iqbal, for that comprehensive overview. Let me come to you next, Mark. We have joining us today Mark John Palomar, Department Manager at the Philippine Ports Authority. Philippines has been working on a number of sustainability measures, including the new Port Environmental Code and investments in offshore wind and solar energy. Could you walk us through some of those and some of the challenges that you foresee coming up?
Yes. Good afternoon. Good day, esteemed colleagues and distinguished panelists. I am Mark John Palomar, Department Manager of the Commercial Services Department of the Philippine Ports Authority. It is an honor to participate in this important discussion on port decarbonization, a shared challenge that also presents new opportunities. The Philippine Ports Authority, which was established in 1974, is responsible for supervising, regulating, and managing the country's port system. Currently, PPA directly manages 115 ports, which handle a wide range of activities vital to both domestic and international maritime trade. Additionally, PPA supervises over 400 private ports operating under various agreements or permits issued by the authority. The Philippine Ports Authority acknowledges the urgent necessity of aligning with global sustainability objectives, particularly as the maritime industry transitions towards greener and more efficient transport systems. Given the rapid growth of the maritime sector in the Philippines, we are focused on reducing our carbon footprint while simultaneously enhancing port efficiency and capacity. PPA is actively modernizing port facilities to become more environmentally sustainable. We have integrated green port concepts in our infrastructure development plans with a strong focus on energy efficiency, renewable energy, waste management. Some of our key initiatives include energy-efficient lighting systems, shore power supply systems, sustainable port infrastructure, waste and water management systems, as well as a requirement as a regulator for those applying with the ports to plant trees. It ranges from 1,000 trees to 100,000 trees per permit. We also developed a terminal appointment booking system, which also reduces the wait times of trucks, thereby reducing their carbon footprint. As one of our as earlier mentioned, we have a large number of ports which we directly manage. We've developed a port terminal management regulatory framework wherein we partner with the private sector in the management of the ports. One of the advantages of this is any changes to the regulations of the ports regarding efficiency and green ports, this must be immediately implemented by our private sector partners. Moving forward, to further advance our decarbonization efforts, we're also exploring several future projects, including renewable energy investments. We plan to invest in renewable energy technologies, such as wind and solar farms, to power port operations. These investments will not only reduce our carbon footprint, but also enhance operational cost efficiency. We also plan to develop green shipping corridors. In collaboration with our Southeast Asian neighbors, we are examining the possibility of establishing green shipping corridors. These corridors aim to lower maritime emissions and encourage the use of cleaner fuels in shipping. We also plan to collaborate with international partners. We're eager to partner with organizations such as the Asian Development Bank and other regional ports to exchange knowledge and implement best practices for decarbonization. We also seek ADB funding to support these sustainability projects. We also are developing a PPA port environmental code, which would serve as a key framework linking port performance with PPA's environmental strategies to effectively manage port sustainability. The path to full decarbonization is undoubtedly long and challenging, but the PPA is fully committed to leading the transformation of the Philippine maritime sector through strategic partnerships, policy reforms, and the adoption of innovative technologies. We are confident that our ports will play a pivotal role in building a more sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And thank you very much to our audience for your continued attention during the session that expanded beyond our allotted time with a very rich dialogue and comments from our speakers, panelists alike. One last call in terms of any questions from the audience in terms of the areas that we have covered today. I see that we've learned a lot today. And we're all looking forward to the port visit to the Busan port as well. So on that note, I'd like to thank, of course, our audience for your participation. And thank you for being a part of this collaborative dialogue, to all our speakers and panelists, which we hope to continue. And please join me in extending our deep appreciation to our esteemed speakers for their valuable contributions today, and to BPA for their impeccable hospitality and this excellent organization of yet another successful BIPC. And together, let's sound the call for all hands on deck once again as we progress on this pathway towards maritime decarbonization with determination, commitment, and a shared vision for a sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I think I made a mistake. I should have allocated 2 hours for this session. I'm really, really sorry about the time pressure. So let me wrap up really quickly. Why don't we give a big round of applause to our panelists and speakers? Thank you. Thank you so much. And we actually need to take a picture with all the panelists and all the audience panelists as well. So please come forward. So while you take a picture, let me conclude the BIPC 2024. So feel free to come down and take a picture. We have our professional photographer ready for you. 네, 너무너무 고생 많으셨습니다. 네, 저희 이제 BIPC 2024 공식적인 행사 이것으로 모두 마무리.
So this will conclude all the official event of the BIPC 2024, and the lunch is prepared outside the hall. So if you go to the cafeteria, then you can pick up some sandwich and refreshments there.
Prepared lunch outside, so you can go to the coffee place where you got your coffee and pick up your food and go to the eating space for your lunch. 네, 저희 이제 내년에는 13회차이지 않겠습니까? 13회차면 13이니까 진정한 이제 티네이저가 되었다라고 생각이 드는데요. 내년에는 저희 조금 더 역동적이고 신나는 BIPC로 돌아오도록 하겠습니다. 그러면 내년에 개최될 BIPC에도 많은 성원과 관심 부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼 지금까지 사회를 맡은 이미사였습니다. 감사합니다. Please look into the camera and the count of 3. 준비되셨나요? 3, 2, 1. 김치. Hot. Small heart. Small heart, everyone. Small heart. Okay, on count of 3, 2, 1. BIPC. Okay, that's great. Actually, I was told that you will take another picture outside the photo wall. So, more picture, the merrier, right? So, please join us at the photo shoot outside. Thank you very much.